So, what makes me cranky about Hostels? At no point does Christian Bale break out his ridiculous Batman voice, because damn could this movie have used some levity. I dare say this is probably the most depressing movie I've seen in quite some time. It's pretty much a 2-hour exercise in how much it sucked to live in the Old West, starting with a bunch of Comanches brutally murdering a small family of white settlers. Yes, that's right. Native Americans can be evil bastards in this movie, just like the white man driving them off their ancestral lands, so for once you aren't in for a lecture about how awful white people are. While that sentiment is expressed by some of the characters, it's actually done in such a way as to make them look like the assholes, rather than the other way around. So basically, just about everyone of consequence in this movie is guilty of doing something they're not proud of. Including Christian Bale, who isn't a heroic cowboy riding up to the rescue. He's just another old soldier who's done his share of Indian massacring and is ready to retire. Alas, as is how these things go, before he can get his pension, his commanding officer comes to him with one last mission: escort your mortal enemy, Chief Native American actor Wes Studi, and his family back to his ancestral home so he can die in peace of cancer. And no, you can't refuse. So begins the long, meandering trek from New Mexico to Montana, in which everyone is miserable and most people die quickly and unceremoniously. You know, the actual pace of the movie isn't that bad. There's plenty of little action sequences along the way with some surprisingly loud gunshots to break it up, but the parts in between drag out forever, since there's very little dialogue and, as I said, virtually no levity whatsoever. No moments of triumph, no jokes around the campfire, just a lot of haunted gazes and other signs of PTSD. On the rare chance that anyone decides to communicate with words rather than thousand-yard stares, the dialogue is often half mumbled, which makes it even more difficult to get a sense of who these people are or how they're changing throughout the journey. At least when Bale and the Chief get down to talking, they're doing it in Cheyenne or some such, so you can at least understand them since it's subtitled. Unfortunately, they don't actually interact that often, which makes their character arcs feel rather abrupt in the end, even though you know exactly where it's going the minute you first see them together. It really would have helped if Hostels took more time to focus on the relationship between these two guys rather than the more stream of consciousness approach it takes, since wandering from cast member to cast member and subplot to subplot ultimately just makes them all feel rushed and or unimportant. The only character who really gets a proper fleshed out arc is Rosamund Pike, and despite what the trailers would have you believe, she isn't in this to be the badass Annie Oakley type. She's too busy suffering from PTSD like everyone else, and ultimately she's just something of a love interest for Christian Bale's character. In fact, you can basically ignore the previews entirely. This isn't a grand Western adventure or the best Western since Unforgiven. It's much more like The Revenant, only without Leonardo DiCaprio getting raped by a bear and fewer shots of the moon. It's a movie about people staring at cameras and trying to convey how utterly broken they are. Also, Ben Foster is in it to play Ben Foster. And I wish I had more to say about it beyond that, but it's just an unremarkable kind of movie. There's nothing especially bad about it, other than how depressing it is, but neither does it do anything especially good enough to warrant noting. That makes it very much in line with the kind of stuff studios like to dump in January when nobody feels like going to the movies unless they have a YouTube channel that needs content every once in a while to remind people they still exist. In any case, I can't really recommend watching Hostels in a theater unless you're really into that kind of artsy movie. So basically, this is one of those that you watch on the couch when you're stuck at home and want to feel better about your life. That's what I thought about Hostels anyway. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you'd like to help me get through those long, cold nights out on the plains, drop me a like and subscribe to the channel for more reviews.